I like your backdrop, John. Did I tell you the story? I was Zoom teaching a class of primary kids a couple of weeks back, and this kid didn't put the video on. So at the end, I said, look, let's just see what you're like, and I'll say cheerio. So she switched on the video, and there behind her on a couch was her father fast asleep.
I still like these Snapchats. I can't resist the Snapchats. There you are.
I like
an improvement.
I liked your old man one. It was vastly improved. Yes.
Yeah. Takes years off my life. Where's the old man? That second, I'll get him again. There he is. There. How do you think of that? I think I'll go and play football for the Herts. I think I'm young enough for that.
You'll walk straight into the first team.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite good fun, that though, particularly with the kids. You need something to sort of keep you entertained, I think. I'm always amazed at what technology will do. I mean, the very fact that a number of people can get together like this in real time is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Well, good morning, Donald. Nice to see you, as I've said before. It's a great pleasure. I'm looking forward about your 3 careers. But what I want to say beforehand is I'm surprised you don't have other careers, because I believe, a little birdie told me this, in fact, your football skills developed in the back garden, and you had to develop a shooting, shall we say, the ball in the right direction, because you were kicking the ball into the neighbour's rose bed and knocking the flower heads off. And that, therefore, as I said, contributed to your football. Then your cricketing, you played down the passageway between the houses. And then not only that, but you used to swim in the canal looking for mussels and cockles. So a swimming career looked quite promising. And then you're actually in communications by a cable or a string with a tin can at each end and communicating with a neighbour's son. And that's quite maybe normal for people, but the one that really got me was apparently when you're working in the office in the high street, you used to come in the mornings and ask the staff to show the colour of their socks. Now, I can't for the life of me wonder why you did that, and if possibly the lead on from that was going into photography. So maybe in your 3 careers, one of them could be added on. Or is it just a fetish that you had about coloured socks? So, Donald, take the floor, please. It's all yours.
Well, I was anxious about doing this in the first place, and I'm now terrified after what I've just heard. But I suspect either George Bannerman or possibly Roy Alexander have been in contact with the Probus Club. But after the tomfoolery that I've heard already in the last 10 minutes, all you're going to hear over the next 2.5 hours is going to be pretty poor stuff by comparison. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be invited to speak to you this morning. And when John first phoned me, I took the reverse charge, and I thought, well, how can I do this? And it suddenly dawned on me that I've had three professional careers, and they amount to close on 60 years. So I thought, can I do something with this? So here we go. It's a pleasure to be with you. I haven't the faintest idea how many of you guys or other people out there in the public view have had the luck that I've had in enjoying 3 careers through my lifetime. You're going to hear this word luck quite a lot this morning, because there has been a huge amount of luck attached to what I've done. I'll give you a short intro to where it all started. my dad qualified as a veterinary surgeon in Glasgow in 1924. He decided to go down to Cornwall and took a position as a locum down there. Then he came back 2 years later, bought the wee veterinary practice, which it was then a small practice in Linlithgow in 1927. So that was him set up. He met and married my mum. Elizabeth Scott was her name. She lived in Lee Park down the Bo'ness Road. She was a secretary with Peter Kinnan Kidd, who I think are still going in the High Street in Linlithgow, and they were married in 1932. Now, my late brother Malcolm arrived in 1936, but it was another 8 years before I appeared, and the date's quite significant. It was the 25th of October 1944. And I always wondered how I managed to get here, because my mum was then 42 years of age. But what I did was I looked at the date again, and I thought, how on earth can it be as late as this? And I took 9 months off the 25th of October, arrived at the 25th of January, and decided that I was conceived after my dad had returned from a burnt supper on the 25th of January. Anyway, that's just a bit of nonsense thrown in. Our first picture that you're going to see is yours truly, aged 3, in his garden in Linlithgow. There it is. Now, who would believe, looking at that this was going to be 3 career-fed young man, and it's just it's quite astonishing. And I'll return to the ears shortly, but that was the beginning. Age 3 in our garden up at Thornton, up the Edinburgh Road, and here we are, age 70, on Carnoustie links in Carnoustie, complete with camera, and what a 67 years it has been. Anyway, Linlithgow has had an enormous influence on my life, obviously, as many of you will know. I'm just going to jump briefly to career number 3, and there's the photographic inspiration, which has undoubtedly started off the thought of photography, although it didn't come along professionally until the 1990s. But the town, as we all know, is just magical for photographing, and you'll see a few more of these as the talk goes on. The 3 careers really began at Linlithgow Primary School, Linlithgow Public School as it was at the Westport, where in Primary 1, Miss Baird was our wonderful teacher. I was already enjoying figures. I should say that's arithmetical figures. The enjoyment of other figures came later. And this day she was doing arithmetic, and she was writing up on the blackboard, if a child was born in 1943, what age will he be in 2020? And of course, the class just collapsed in heaps of laughter at 2020. And here we are in 2021. It's almost incredible. Anyway, my love of arithmetic led to one of my careers. It's been the favourite subject for 10 years. Is that luck? Well, perhaps, but maybe mum or dad stuck that in my brain and I got it. But it was the first of 4 major happenings over 10 years, which hugely influenced where I was heading. We come now to pick 4, which shows my Uncle George on the golf course at Linlithgow. Uncle George was my mum's brother, and he was a bank manager with the British Linen Bank in Linlithgow. He was a great golfer, as you may know. I'm pretty sure he was club champion at Linlithgow, and his prowess in banking led to him being sent to British Guiana at the top of South America. And of course, he took his golf clubs, and he always came home every couple of years to see the family and have a game of golf and all the rest of it. And of course, I was 9 or 10 by this time, and he said, "What a wonderful life I've got, Donald. You should get into banking. You like arithmetic, and that's tailor-made. Get into banking." So, aged 11, that was me looking seriously at going into banking. There was then the most amazing combination of circumstances which killed that expectation stone dead. I was into cricket. I think it's already been mentioned this morning in the introduction. I was already into cricket and played for West Lothian County along at Bog Hall. A small county, a small team, and we were regularly thumped in the county's championship and generally finished bottom of the league every season. But then a strange thing happened. The manager of the bank of the British Linen Bank in Linlithgow was moved, and a young lad called Eddie Buchanan, who played cricket for Edinburgh Academicals, was appointed manager. Now, I was scoring at the time, and Eddie was a very good fast bowler and could bat a bit. And he played that season for us at Bog Hall, and we finished third bottom of the league, which was the best we had ever done in the 60 years history of the club. So come the autumn, we were all very excited when the season closed because we were looking forward to next season being even better. But then an astonishing thing happened. He was told to go to Oban to take up the manager's job at Oban. So we lost Eddie Buchanan, we lost his fast bowling, the wickets he could take, we lost his batting, and guess what? Yep, we finished bottom of the league again the next year. So I suddenly thought, wait a minute, I'm looking at a career here. I don't want somebody to tell me where I'm going to work. I want to choose my own destination. So that was banking, just kicked out the door. So that brought serious accounting thoughts to the mind. And the enjoyment of arithmetic created the love of maths when I went to secondary school. And our secondary school maths teacher was Mr. John Ferguson, who was unquestionably the best teacher I ever had in my school times. He was absolutely brilliant. He had the final influence on what I was going to do, because at age 14, 15, I went to speak to him and said, Mr. Ferguson, I'm thinking about becoming a maths teacher because I just love figures and everything. And he just put his hand up and he said, Donald, don't do it. It's a dead end. You'll get so far, but you can't go any further. With what you've got, you can do far better than that. Now, for a mathematician to say that was a pretty serious thing. So that was the end of mathematics, and therefore serious accounting thoughts became the prime motivation and the final influence on what I did with my first career. If we turn to picture 5, you will see a shot of Princes Street Gardens. And the reason that I've brought this up is because the city of Edinburgh had to do so much in my lifetime, or has done so much in my lifetime. And this is the classic photograph taken from the east end of Princes Street Gardens in autumn, and it still remains one of my favourite photographs from my entire career. Anyway, a slight diversion, because in 1952, when I was aged 8, my dad took me for the first time to Tynecastle to see the Herts playing. And Tommy Walker was the manager then, and he was creating an extremely good team, which was scoring a lot of goals, which was pulling huge numbers of people into Tynecastle, and which were just wonderful. The football was wonderful to watch. My dad had actually been a good footballer himself. He played with Kirkintilloch Rob Roy for many years while he was through in the West. He was a good cricketer as well. But the thing that impressed us was the manner in which Tommy Walker, the Hearts manager, had put this wonderful team together. And there were 5 years from 52 to 57 when watching the Hearts was just an absolute pleasure. They scored goals galore. They won the league twice. They won the League Cup. They won the Scottish Cup. It was just wonderful. At that stage, 1959-ish, I was a bit of a contradiction in terms. I'd had a grumbling appendix for several years and was off school every 2 or 3 months with it. And Dr. Reid had always diagnosed it as my mum giving us far too many fatty foods when she was cooking. And when I told her that's what the doctor had said, she wasn't terribly pleased. And I don't think we ever saw Dr. Reid again in the house, but that's another story. Anyway, at that stage, I was 4 feet 10 inches, age 15, and I passed my hires. Now, there's a contradiction for you. 4 feet 10 and somebody passes all their hires. That got to be different. Anyway, as you know, like my dad and like my brother Malcolm, I was cricket and football daft by this time, but I was far too wee. The cause had been the appendix. I started my apprenticeship in Edinburgh as a result of my dad knowing a gentleman called James Whitten, who was senior partner in John M. Geoghegan, the accountants in St. Colm Street, and he played cricket against my dad. And my dad said, look, I'm going to arrange an interview with Mr. Whitten with you, Donald, so we'll go in and see if he's keen on you to join and if you're still keen to become employed by Johnny and Geoghegan. I'll never forget the afternoon we arrived on the steps of the office in St. Colm Street. It was 2 o'clock. And I was standing at the top of the steps at the door. My dad was down on the pavement just looking around. It's a beautiful street with Charlotte Square above. And suddenly this figure came down North Charlotte Street with the black and white pinstripe suit, bowler hat, swinging his black umbrella. And my dad turned and said, here's Mr. Whitten now, Donald, it won't be long. So Mr. Whitten crossed the road, shook hands. Hello, Alec, how are you? Nice to see you. Saw me standing at the door, and the first words my future employer said, Christ, what big ears he's got. So you can imagine the reaction mentally to me. It turned out actually he was a lovely man. He loved making fun of everybody who worked there, but he could take as much as he gave, and we got on extremely well. I was only in the office 3 months before the appendicitis got worse. I was whisked off to Bangor Hospital on a Friday, late Friday morning. I was dumped in a bed in Ward 8, and Nurse Nancy Gray came round with a little dish with a razor and water and brush, and she said, Donald, could you pull your pyjama bottoms down because I need to give you your pre-med. So I pulled my pyjamas round. She came across, looked at my private parts and said, oh, and then walked out, pulled the curtains back. She hadn't realised that I hadn't even reached puberty at the 4 foot 10 stage of my life in age 15. Oh dear, so there you go. I'm sure that hasn't happened to many of the guys you're watching this morning, but it was quite an important feature. I grew 7 inches in the next year, but more importantly, the 1961-62 season at Tynecastle marked the arrival of a new system called 4-2-4. A lot of you who follow football will know that years and years ago we played with 2 full-backs, 3 half-backs and 5 forwards. 5 forwards. Now you're lucky if we've got 1 forward. Anyway, that was the old style. But Tommy Walker and Johnny Harvey, the trainer, had gone down to England and had brought back this 4-2-4 formation. And it really was quite boring. It had become very predictable, and the attacking stuff just wasn't the same as we had become expected to. So my pals and I just stopped going to Tynecastle because we weren't enjoying it, despite the fact that we'd followed them for 10 years. So I started looking around Linlithgow and heard about the Vale of Avon, the local juvenile team, which played out of Linlithgow Bridge. So I went along, and Norman Cummings was instrumental in getting me there. Norman Cummings was a brilliant goalkeeper. He probably still is a brilliant goalkeeper, and he'll be pleased to hear that I've recognised him. But he got me along to Vale of Avon. I joined Vale of Avon in 1962, played as a right winger. 1963 began with a horrendous winter. I'm sure some of you will remember there was snow on the ground for months and we didn't play football for months, but eventually we started again. And unknown to me, Bo'ness United had somebody having a wee look. There's a great story here. I did sign for them and started playing for them in 1963. Colin Grant, who some of you may know, was a very good footballer in Bo'ness, and we played against each other. He was at Bo'ness Academy, I was at Linlithgow Academy. We played against each other there. I joined my local juvenile team, Vale of Avon. Colin joined his local juvenile team, which is Bo'ness Thistle. I think I'm right in saying it was Bo'ness Thistle. Then I signed for Bo'ness United. He came up and signed for Linlithgow Rose. I think you're getting the picture now. And the final move was that I went to Tynecastle to play for Herts, and Colin went to Easter Road and played for Hibs. Now, there's one for your sports quizzes, guys. If you ever need something different about football, there's a cracker for you. Anyway, the real big event here was that playing for Bo'ness United was a pleasure. We had a very good centre forward called Kenny Buchanan, very good, three very good ex-seniors in our team, and we played very well. And we were drawn against Arniston Rangers in the Scottish Cup at Gore Bridge this particular Saturday. And the place was absolutely packed out. I'd been playing as a right winger for Vale of Avon and was signed by Bo'ness as a right winger. And we played this match at Arniston, and the left back for Arniston Rangers was called George Peden. And I knew that he had just signed for Herts as a prospective for coming season. So I was playing against George Peden as a right winger, and I'm not a big-headed person, but I gave him a pretty hard 90 minutes. And unknown to me, there was a Herts scout in the crowd. So my name was then passed down to Tommy Walker. Fast forward 7 days to the next Saturday, and we were playing, Bo'ness were playing Bonnyrigg Rose at Newtown. And I was absolutely hopeless. I hardly kicked a ball the whole game. I did nothing at all. I thought, well, if there's anybody watching that, that's the end of my football career. Would you believe the scout had already reported to Mr. Walker that he wanted to get me in for a trial. He didn't go to Newtown to see my pathetic effort against Bonnyrigg. Luck, I've mentioned several times. If that wasn't the greatest stroke of luck in my football, then I'm not really sure what was. So there we were, up a grade to junior football, training Tuesday night and Thursday night at Newtown, working in the office. Again, I just don't know how it happened, but anyway, they'd signed me at Tynecastle. I played a trial, I'd done okay, and Tommy Walker shook my hands and said, "Donald, welcome to Tynecastle. It's lovely to see you. And I hope it all works for you." And it did work, because I was 2 years into my accounting apprenticeship. Third year was coming up at university, and Jim Whitten, the boss, had said to me, "Donald, you've only 2 years to go until you qualify. Don't sign full-time for the Herts. Don't sign professional forms. Just sign as an amateur." So I did. I got 9 amateur caps for Scotland as a result of that, playing with the Queen's Park lads in some great matches we had all over Europe and all over Great Britain. And sadly, I just missed one in Spain, but it was absolutely brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then about, I think it was October, Tommy Walker said that he was going to give me my first game in the first team, and it was against Celtic at Tynecastle. Now, you can imagine what the stomach was like half an hour before the game started, and my dad had decided to take my mum to the game. She had never seen a game of football in her life, and to my absolute disgust, when I came out of Tynecastle after the game, which we incidentally won 3-1, there was Mum standing with her green and white tammy on, having sat up the stairs with Dad for 90 minutes with the Celtic tammy on in the Herts section of the director's box. You can't beat it. It's just absolutely wonderful. The end of that season was interesting, because we had a very good centre forward called Willie Wallace, and Celtic signed him. the staff, the admin staff had already fixed up a Hearts tour over at Norway at the end of the season. And Tommy Walker said he would like me to go because Willie Wallace had gone. He switched me to centre forward. What he saw, I just never understood, but he did it. So we went to Norway, had a brilliant fortnight in Norway with 4 great games. And we came back on a Friday, but on the Saturday we had been appointed to play Kilmarnock, who had won the championship at Tynecastle just 3 weeks previously. You may remember Hearts only needed not to lose 2-0 and they would win the league. And yes, you've guessed it, Kilmarnock beat us 2-0 at Tynecastle. Anyway, I came back. We had this game that the SFA had fixed up. It was a trial of a no offside rule that the FIFA, the world body, had thrown to nations. And what happened was that the 18-yard line was extended both sides so that it ran to both touchlines at both ends of the field. And if you were within that area, you could not be offside. So the first half of the game was played as normal, and I think it was something like 2-1 for us, and I'd scored a goal. Then the second half, we played to these rules. The final score was Hearts 8, Kilmarnock 3, and I had scored 5 of them. I went off absolutely thrilled to bits. I just couldn't believe it. But it's something, again, I will never, ever forget. And again, the word luck has got to be involved there somewhere. So back to the office. I was in year 4. I managed to qualify in 1966 and I was still playing part-time football for Hearts. James Whitten's words came back to me: Donald, if you want to have a go at professional football, then sign professional forms, but you're an amateur, so you will ask for money to forego your amateur status. And I eventually got £500 from Hart Midlothian Football Club for signing as a professional in 1967. Wow. Anyway, so that was it, full time. And I had decided by this point that Linlithgow was beginning to grow. It had been a small town, but houses were coming. The high street was getting busier, and I thought, I'm going to set up a wee practice here because it's going to take 5, maybe 8, maybe 10 years to build up, by which time, if I make it at football, I'll be not able to play anymore. So I set up a wee office above Fechney's, the bakers, 45 High Street. Mrs. Fechney gave me a wee room up on the first floor. I asked Annette Wilson from Oaklands Park if she would like to be my secretary. She was delighted. I'll tell you a wee bit about Graham in a minute. But the CA work therefore was in afternoons. We trained in the mornings at Tynecastle. It just worked out beautifully. And Annette was absolutely splendid. Now, Annette's husband, Graham, was a chartered surveyor in Glasgow. And he happened to be, his company happened to take an interest in the work that Round, Anderson, Kinnenmuth and Paul, architects in Edinburgh, had been asked to do by the town council with regard to demolishing the west side of the cross and roughly 250 yards of the north side of the Vennel along to the swing park at Oliphants the Bakers. There were huge protests about doing this and how the proposals of the architect just didn't fit with the ancient town of Linlithgow. And those who didn't want it asked Graham if his firm would take up opposition. They did. We failed to move the remainder of the town council, and now we have the high street with the horrendous box-shaped, white, not attractive, not in any way fitting houses, flats and shops, and that's got to be one of the worst decisions that we ever made in Linlithgow, in my opinion, and I'm happy to argue with anybody afterwards if you're still awake about that thought of mine. Anyway, back to football and the football career. Herts at this stage, 1967-68, were a shadow of the team that I had seen in the 10 years in the 50s. And it was, I hope it was just a coincidence that the 10 years that followed my arrival in 1964 it heralded a further decline in the fortunes of the club, because we didn't win anything of any value to please the supporters. Nevertheless, there were moments, and I was lucky enough to score the goal that knocked Rangers out of the Scottish Cup at Tynecastle in a replay in 1968. We went on to lose the final to Dunfermline, but I was beginning to make a position for myself there. The next picture that comes up, which John will put up for you, is the 1970 Hearts squad, among whom there were some very, very good players. Eddie Thompson, our captain, middle of the front row, Jim Townsend to his right, Jim Cruikshank, the goalkeeper, who was absolutely brilliant. If he had played for a Glasgow club, he'd have had at least 50 caps. Sadly, 5 or 6 of that team we're looking at there is no more. The years are just thundering past now, but that was the makings of an extremely good team, and defensively in particular, they were excellent. The next picture is a fascinating one as well. I had gone to speak to Bobby Seath, our manager then, at the end of the season, previous season. We were missing penalties. Dave Clooney, who was a great striker of the ball, was missing them. Jim Townsend was missing them. So I went to Mr. Seath. I said, Mr. Seath, I'm a centre forward. I should be able to take penalty kicks. So he said, delighted. Do you go away, work something out and come back and we'll try it. So I got this theory worked out, that if there's a weak spot in the goal mouth for a goalkeeper when a penalty is being taken, it's probably down to the bottom of his left hand at my right hand post when I'm taking the kick. So that's what I tried to do. And the picture you're looking at now was the first of a hat-trick of penalties, which I scored at Capello against Morton in 1973. Every one of them was a penalty. We were down 2-0 at the time, so we won the match 3-2, and I think I still remain the only Hearts player ever to score a hat-trick of penalties in a league match. So that was really something. On a lighter note, the next picture is a classic. 1974 was going to mark the centenary of Hearts Football Club arriving at Tynecastle, and this is some of the group singing the Hearts song, which was composed and was released in 1974, and 27 copies were sold to supporters. Needless to say, it was not a huge success, but it was good fun, and there are some very good players in that football group you see there. The older gentleman is John Haggart, who is just a lovely man. Sadly passed away very young, but he took the team over for 2 years as just before I left, because it was almost the end of what I could do. So the 73-74 season with Bobby Seath found him signing 3 key players. First was Drew Busby, who was a big, strong centre forward from Airdrie. Second was Kenny Aird, who was a very tricky wee winger from St Johnstone. And the third was Bobby Prentice, who was generally a Celtic second team player, but very, very quick with a tremendous left foot. Bobby Seath signed them, brought them to Tynecastle, and we played 4-2-4 at the start of the season. And for 3 months, we were top of the league. With Drew Busby knocking everybody out the way. I had scored 17 goals by the end of November, believe it or not. Willie Ormond had noted my performance, and I was asked to go to the final match in the Scotland World Cup against Czechoslovakia in Bratislava. Those of you who remember that year will recall the fantastic win at Hampden, which put Scotland top of the the league. So the result in Czechoslovakia didn't matter, but Ormond wanted to see how I could perform against another international team. So that team that you're looking at, that squad went to Bratislava, and I will never forget, we got on the bus, having been told by Willie Ormond what partner we were going to spend the 2 or 3 days with, and I was paired with Dennis Law. Can you imagine that? So the first thing Dennis did when he heard that, he came over to me, he said, "Donald, you'll be looking after my bags as well as yours when we go to Bratislava." I said, "That's fine, Dennis, I have no problem with that. You're a lot older than me." So I never forget coming out the hotel in Glasgow. We stayed there the night before we flew over to Czechoslovakia. So I got my bags on the pavement, went back in, got Dennis's bags, got them on the pavement. So of course, around the back of the bus driver put the stuff in. Mine were last to go in. So I walked back, I walked up the steps of the bus. I was last to get on the bus. I looked up the bus and I saw Bremner, Morgan, Law, Buchan, Lorimer, Dalglish, Jordan, Holton, Harvey. And I took a deep breath. I said, "Donald, what are you doing here?" And I'll never forget that. And then I sort of shook myself and said, "Well, somebody must think that you've got a chance here." Luck again. Lou McCarry and Joe Harper, who probably would have been in instead of me if they'd been fit, were both hurt. So I was on the bus. I played well at Czechoslovakia. I came on in the second half for Dennis. I played well with Joe Jordan, hit the bar, hit the goalkeeper in the middle of the forehead when I should have scored. But it worked, and I was included in the World Cup squad, the same one that you see on the pictures there. And we went to Germany and had a wonderful time there. I have one regret in my whole life on the 3 careers that I've enjoyed. It started during the home internationals before we went to Germany. I was asked on the Tuesday night to play against Wales at Hampden. Dennis had played on the Saturday against Ireland and hadn't played well. He was really past his best. So Willie Ormond asked me to play with Joe, and I played very well against Wales. That was the night before the famous boating incident at Largs, which I'm sure you've all read about and heard countless times. But until the Friday, I was training with the team that was going to start the game against England on the Saturday. And I phoned my dad on the Friday night and said, "Dad, I think I'm playing against England tomorrow." So he organised to come through on the Saturday, and Willie Ormond announced the team at Largs on the Saturday morning, and I was not included. I was put in as a substitute, and Peter Lorimer took my position up alongside Joe Jordan, and I just couldn't believe it. Somebody or somebodies in the squad had obviously gone to Ormond and said, "You can't play Donald Ford against England. He's just not up to the standard. He's not good enough." If I have one regret, it was that I never got to start that game, and I never got to come on against Zaire in the first game in the World Cup. And they were a big, heavy team with very few skills. And if I was in Germany for anything, it was to have a go at Zaire. And the one regret in a fantastic 10 years was that I didn't get the chance to play. As it happened, I got a cruciate ligament injury the next year. I was freed by John Haggart. I joined Falkirk for a year, but it just didn't work. The leg was holding up, but if anybody hit me, I just collapsed. It was time to bow out and get down to the accounting practice again. But what a fantastic 10 years I had. I still shake my head at it all. And you're going to see a wee video here of a very special end to a game at Ibrox that we played. The background to this is that the previous season at Ibrox, they'd been beating us 4-0. And Willie Johnson, Bud Johnson as he was known, was a star player for the Rangers in these days. And with about 3 minutes to go, he took the ball down to the corner flag. He beat Dave Clooney. He took the ball down to the corner flag. he put the ball in the wee quarter circle and sat on it. Can you imagine the noise of 51,000 Rangers supporters at Ibrox when he did that? Well, fast forward a year, we're back at Ibrox playing them, and my great wee pal Tommy Murray, who was inside right then, had not forgotten what Willie Johnson did to us. So have a look at this and you'll see exactly.
Waiting for Brown to get into position. 4 minutes to play. Back to Murray. Murray having a seat on the ball. Away come Herts as Brown, low and hard across goal. Headed down and it's there! A sensation for the scorer from that superb cross by Brown.
A goal to remember.
Yeah, a goal to remember, and without doubt, the probably the greatest memory of my football career. Anyway, back to the practice. Development was faster than I thought. George Bannerman, who I mentioned a way back, joined me as a partner. Then Roy Alexander came along as another one. Alistair Armstrong. Ford and Bannerman eventually moved to 100 High Street. The 7 years there in the practice developed, but I wasn't enjoying it. There were just a few things going on that I wasn't happy with. Then I had 2 very difficult years in 1981-82. I left the Ford and Bannerman practice and set up a professional consultancy firm. And Alan Steele, who now occupies Noble House down at the Regent Centre, whom I'd known, he was younger than me at school, but we got on, and he had decided to start his own financial advisory firm, and came up and asked if I would like to be in an office in his building. So I moved my wee practice into his office. That lasted for 5 years. We built up a tremendous relationship, which I'm happy to say still exists to this day. Is that luck again that he decided to ask us to become involved? Maybe, but he's expanded and is now arguably the best financial advisory company in the UK, never mind Scotland. Then 1986, his expansion forced me to move. Carol, my wife, and I bought the old building at the corner of Hopetoun Street in Bathgate. She took the top floor and I took the ground floor, and that worked really well. But the signs of disenchantment grew. There were big changes came along at the end of the 1980s in several areas. VAT became an important tax. The Institute of Chartered Accountants introduced a whole new set of rules about accountants not being allowed to be the auditor of a company as well as the accountant. Consultancy was frowned upon. Specialists were having to be brought in to deal with VAT and financial planning and taxation speciality. The costs were enormous, and I just suddenly thought, wait a minute. Carol said, Donald, you're not sleeping, you can't go on like this. So I said, right, that's the end of it. I've had 25 brilliant years. It's time to do something else. And the practice was wound up on the 31st of March, 1991. Believe it or not, the 31st of March. So well chosen, John, for your date. I was halfway through the last year in my practice, speaking to the clients and telling them, I was handing them on to other sets of accountants. And Carol said to me one night, Donald, next April, you'll be out the practice. What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And she said, why don't you have a go at your photography? See if you can make some money out of it. She had seen my Linlithgow stuff. She'd seen my other photographs that I'd taken. And I thought, right, okay. So I got a cigarette packet out and I did a wee financial calculation for the bank manager. So he said, yes, I'll give you a wee overdraft, Donald, to get you started. So off we went into the unknown, the third career, 1991, working from home with financial figures which I thought would work, but which didn't. Carol was a tremendous supporter. I built a mobile gallery which I took around craft fairs and exhibitions to see if people liked the photographs, got good feedback. Now incredibly, the stuff is all over Scotland, and I still find it hard to believe that 3 to 4 years of not making any money was transformed in the mid 1990s, when we bought the old Co-op building down in South Queensferry, whose harbour you see there in front of you. Carol took the office to the side of the property. I opened a Donald Ford gallery in the main part of the building. It was absolutely splendid. My great friend Willie Pollan did all the joiner work and building work that was required, and we opened the gallery in 1993. There is the latest addition to the bridges over the Firth of Forth. How ironic it is that 130 years, 130 technological years after the first bridge was built, this one still closes because ice falls on vehicles crossing the bridge. You can't make it up. Anyway, back to photography. Wall calendars started 1994, and I've really never looked back since then. It was extremely hard to make money because there was so much competition, far more than I had ever thought existed. But Scotland boasts extraordinary landscape, coastal magnificence and sumptuous islands. The question was, could I transfer that to viewers and make some money out of it? Well, my golf and landscape calendars, the combination, are still unique to photography in Scotland. Nobody else does wall calendars like these. They've been done for 25 years now. And here is a wee selection of pictures just to show you, give you an idea of what I've been doing and why this country is such a fantastic place in which to take photographs. This first one is West Haven at Carnoustie, where we now live. It's the harbour showing the wee houses, and West Haven was there before Carnoustie was there. This is the most fantastic sunset that I've ever seen anywhere. This was October in Carnoustie, and I ran out the house with my slippers on and got soaked going through the puddles to get the picture, but what a cracker it was. The next one is a shot of the championship course at Carnoustie. Golf has been a huge part of my photographic life. This is the shot 13th at Carnoustie, which has hosted so many opens. It is without doubt the greatest links course in the world, despite what many people will tell you it's not. It is the greatest golf course in the world. That's the 13th at Carnoustie. The next one is a lovely shot across the Firth of Tay. There's a wee road goes from Newborough to Wormit on the south side of the Tay, north coast of Fife, and it looks right across to Angus and Perthshire and the ploughing time. Just a lovely, everything a photographer wants: the sky, the foreground and the middle ground. Just, you couldn't get better than that. Next one is one of my very favourites. This is a very, very poignant place called Banat Min in the Shetland Islands. It's a tombolo. It's got 2 white beaches, as you can see, and the tide comes in both ways. But it's the atmosphere of utter silence which is there. As you can see, all the old buildings which now are left to enjoy. It is just the most fantastic place to be, to take photographs. The next one has got to be one of the most photographed ever in Scotland, I would say. It's taken from the end or the beginning of the Caledonian Canal, depending whether you're at Corpach or much further up at the foot of Loch Ness. But it's looking straight at the highest mountain in Britain and that phenomenal cloud formation. Believe it or not, I had gone up for a long meeting with my printers then. I walked out the door and they were 200 yards from the end of the Calais Canal, and I thought, look at that. So luck, it's here again. That's one of my favourite pictures, and will always be so. The next one is another one of wonderful reflections, the Five Sisters of Kintail. or four of them. The fifth is just out of focus, but had to be taken with that lovely white puffy cloud. There's not a railway line going across the top of the Kintail Mountains, I can assure you. That is a lovely cloud and beautiful reflections. Photographer's dream. The next one was taken at the top of the Cairngorms, looking down from just the other side of Cairngorm towards Lochan, and a classic example of how the upright picture can be just as exciting as the landscape one. It was a big climb to get up there, but it was worth every bead of sweat. Here's another one from not far off the same position. That's looking up to the Cairngorms across Loch Morlich. Again, just a wonderful sight in Scotland, and the Corrie of the Snow right in the middle of the picture to get people seeing and enjoying it. Next one is the fruit of being up early in the morning and getting to your location before the sun comes up. This is Skurdiness at Montrose, that's Skurdiness Lighthouse, and lovely flat water with just the ripples of waves to contrast with the rising sun and the lighthouse. The composition is just out of this world. It's the photographer's dream yet again. The next one, this is Torridon, which is one of the very favourite climbing spots for walkers and climbers in Scotland. We're looking across Loch Torridon here. The name of that little pointed hump there is Crag of the Eagles. It's a Gaelic name which I refuse to try and pronounce. And we're looking across to Benalligan on the other side of Loch Torridon. That was actually taken by a colleague of mine, and I give him credit for absolutely wonderful effort to get there and make a superb composition out of it. The next one is a classic from one of the most visited areas of Scotland, the Trossachs. And in winter time, if my colleague will, that's the one. Trossachs Kirk, the corner of Loch Achray. The car was parked just 200 yards away. I trudged through a few sludgy bits, but was delighted to see that the frost had done its job. And that's a beautiful place to be. This is actually the front page colour or a picture of the 2021 landscape calendar. It's looking across Plockton. That's Trossach Kirk again, which has just been moved to across Plockton. That's Plockton just been moved to Trossachs Kirk. Oh no, it's not, I beg your pardon. The next one is the golf cover on my 2021 calendar. If John can manage to bring that one up. There we go. That's the 14th, short 14th at Crail, which is looking across to Angus, and that was the golf cover picture on the landscape calendar for 2021. So that's just a wee flavour. It's been an absolutely astonishing, exhilarating, thrilling, at times exhausting career. It's yielded a fantastic set of pictures. I've got over 6,000 slides now, believe it or not, from around Scotland. And there's really only one way to finish now, and that is back to Linlithgow, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this wee wind up from the town. There we go. Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope you've enjoyed that 45-50 minutes as much as I have. 3 professional careers in 60 years is just astonishing, and I have been, again, for the last time, just so lucky.
Well done. Well done.
Well done.
That was absolutely brilliant. Well done, Donald. What a career.
Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Now, any questions to Donald before he disappears? Right, William, yes, carry on.
Taking your 3 careers, Donald, which of which one have you enjoyed most and why?
Oh gosh, I honestly think that's an almost impossible question to answer. I think it's got to be the last one, to be honest. I mean, it's the one which was least likely to ever happen, and the fact that it did happen and got it to a 25-year stage is just incredible. But I enjoyed them all. It was really sad that the CA situation deteriorated in the last 4 years that I was practicing, because I loved the meeting with clients and everything that came out of it, both for them and for myself. And the football career was just astonishing. And again, you know, the word luck is not out of place, because you need so much luck for it all to work. But right at this moment, you know, if I had to say something, it would be photography.
Okay.
Donald, yeah, you're now based up at Carnoustie, I believe, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, was that on a geographical basis or the golf course? What do you think?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because it was a freak. In 1948, my mum and dad brought us up here, Malcolm and my brother and I, up here for a holiday. Carnoustie was in a very small coastal town with a beautiful beach, very, very busy in the summertime with hundreds of tourists. The great golf courses, the bowling green for mum and dad. It was just the perfect place to have a holiday. And mum and dad eventually retired here in 1965 and spent 17 years in Carnoustie. So we were visiting them with, you know, our own family. And then in the late 1990s, early 2000, we were living in West Calder, Carol and I, and we got the South Queensferry. The South Queensferry gallery had been wonderful, but we were looking forward to where we might go when we retire. And we'd been up in Aberdeenshire for a wee weekend, and I took her down through Carnoustie for lunch. And it was a lovely day. We'd had our lunch, walked along the beach, and she said, "Donald, this is a really, really nice place. You know, I'm fed up hearing you talking about Carnoustie, but it's a really lovely place." Believe it or not, 10 days later, the Scotsman advertised this house in its property department. We went to see it. We came to see it. We loved it. It's 20 yards from the beach. Put an offer in. We got it, and we've now been here this is our 16th year in Carnoustie. The word luck again, I'm afraid, has to come in, but it's been absolutely wonderful, and particularly in the pandemic, we've got this wonderful sea air to enjoy, and the number of times Carl and I have said to each other, these poor folk in flats all over Dundee and Edinburgh and Aberdeen, and you know, it's how on earth did they manage to cope with it all in the lockdown? You know, we're so lucky to be here.
Okay, thanks, Donald.
Donald, can I ask
Yep.
your photography? Is it all self-taught? Is it all just a hobby that just elaborated? Because you get professional photographers at weddings and stuff like that, and it's so precise and the lighting and all the rest of it. Was it just a natural thing to you?
Yes, it was started in Linlithgow. I was trying to get an old black and white picture, which was in the guide and Linlithgow Gazette, as it was in these days. I think I was 9 years old. It's a picture of me when the marches went out to the Brig Inn, and I was going past the door with my wee from my very first camera around my neck, and I couldn't find the photograph, I'm afraid. But yes, I'm self-taught. Having said that, when you're learning, you look at every photograph, landscape, golf course photograph that you see, to see if it's better than what you do, to see if there's something that you wouldn't put in it that others do. For example, I try very hard not to put golfers in my golf photographs, because they just kill the impact totally. But no, it's all self-taught. And if you're doing it yourself, then the composition is the thing that creates the impact. The light is absolutely crucial. The light is the most important thing of the lot, but your composition is the one that will make or break your picture. So keep working at it, and it will get better, I promise you.
Okay, cool.
Right, so anyone, is that us? Question is coming up for 11 o'clock. David, would you like to give thank you to Donald, please?
Okay, off mute, am I? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Oh, we could hear you fine. You've gone away now.
You've gone.
Well, you seem to disappear.
Hi, here.
He's frozen.
David, you're frozen.
Yeah. Well, somebody else. Yeah.
Well, yeah, David's coming wrong somewhere. Well, Donald, as we beg your pardon, David is going to give the vote of thanks, but I'll do it myself. As I said, you've explained everything. Wondered what the 3 careers were. Well, that's been, as I say, it's been brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I was a hard supporter myself as a youngster when we had. So I remember a lot of the names you mentioned. Willie Bald, I don't think he played during his time. I'm not sure. You remember Willie Bald?
Oh, well, my dad, when my dad took me to Tynecastle, he told me to watch Willie Bald more than any other player. Of course, he was a centre forward, and the things that he did off the ball were just fantastic. We've lost so much of that. I've got a list on my desk in the office of 15 skills that have been lost to football in the last 40 years. And you saw them at Tynecastle with Con, Bald and Wardhaw. They were absolutely brilliant.
Terrible trio.
Yeah.
I remember these well. We were quite young as well at that time, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was a rough. Always remember the crowds. We could never go to a match where it was against Celtic or Rangers because the crowd masses, and when you're small, you're down at the wall, right behind the goals, and that's why I remember the goalies as well. The legs seemed to be like tree trunks at that time. So it was a hard game though, especially the boots, the studs. Because I used to play football myself, but different days. I'll just wrap it up now. I don't think it's past our time. And I wish everyone now show their appreciation to Donald for coming, spending the time with us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Pleasure as always.